That's it. But we have the
ask you to sit down. We have to continue our work. And we are very pleased to welcome, first of all, the mayor of this wonderful city of Novi Sad, Mr. Miloš Vučević. And we are very pleased that our assembly could take place in your wonderful city. We are aware of the dramatic history of recent years, but this assembly will remember Novi Sad in its history, because we gathered here and we gathered about also the future of Europe, and we think that Novi Sad is symbolically very important for this assembly, for the Conference of European Churches. So I will now give you the floor.
Uvaženo predsjedništvo, vaše preosveštenstva, dame i gospodo, dragi prijatelji, u ime svih Novosađana i u svoje lično ime moram da istaknem da je zaista velika čast biti grad domaćin Generalne skupštine Evropskih crkava. Izabrali ste Novi Sad, sedište eparhije Bačke, ali i brojnih drugih hrišćanskih zajednica, da bude simbol mira i izgradnje, novih veza između Balkana i ostatka Evrope, da iz njega pošaljete poruku naše zajedničke budućnosti, ali uverenje da smo spremni da jedinstveno odgovorimo na sve izazove čovečanstva koji su pred nama. Dragi prijatelji, Novi Sad je uvijek bio mesto susreta, razumevanja i dijaloga između različitih vera i kultura. Kroz istoriju vašeg grada domaćina, našeg Novog Sada, prepliču se i pobede i stradanja. Ali ovaj grad je uvijek bio otvorenog srca, svojevrstan most koji nas povezuje sa svim našim različitostima. Danas je Novi Sad most vaše duhovne saradnje i u istoriji grada će trajno ostati zapisano da ste održali zajedničku molitvu baš pored naših mostova, na mestima razaranja tokom bombardovanja, ali i na mestima gde su stradali nevini u novosadskoj prošlosti. Ostavili ste i 4 drveta kao trajni znak nade, života i ljubavi. I to će nas uvek sećati i podsjećati na ove razgovore, na to da je Novi Sad danas most koji simbolizuje mir i izgradnju novih veza između Balkana i ostatka Evrope. Želim da znate da Novi Sad danas je jedno od najvećih gradilišta u ovom dijelu Evrope. Radimo i ne odustajemo, jer smo ujedinjeni u želji da naš grad stalno napreduje, da izrasta u modern evropski grad, da bude što veća kuća brojnih naroda i religija, različitih jezika i kultura, koje neguju suživot u razumevanju i saradnji, povezani čvrstom željom da zajedno gradimo budućnost, ali ne zaboravljajući sopstveni identitet. A novosadski mostovi su naš motiv. Na njima smo gradili kampanju kada smo konkurisali za Evropsku prestonicu kulture za 2021. godinu. I osvojili smo tu titulu. To je velika šansa za naš grad, ali i državu, jer je u pitanju projekat od nacionalnog značaja. I to nije samo promocija našeg multikulturalizma, već i velika investiciona i turistička šansa. I zato nam je važno da Srbija bude što snažnija kao lider stabilnosti u ovom dijelu Evrope. da nastavimo od iz tradicije crpimo ono najbolje. Ali da sopstvene nacionalne interese ostvarujemo, oslanjat će se na sopstvenu pamet i znanje. Želimo da nas svet gleda širom otvorenih očiju, da se ne žmuri nad nepravdama. Navikli smo na to da rešavanje dolazi lako, da je puno nepravda u vremenu u kojem živimo, ali navikli smo i na to da ne odustajemo, da se uvek borimo za istinu. Novi Sad je ovih dana mesto na kojem se afirmišu verske različitosti, pozitivne društvene vrednosti i tolerancije. Vi ćete zajedno iz Novog Sada poslati poruke koje se odnose na budućnost Evrope. Očekujem da će se glas svih vas poslati iz Novog Sada, evropske prestonice kulture, grada slobodarske prošlosti, koji je uvek ustajao protiv zla, mržnje i nerazumevanja, zaista daleko čuti. Želim vam puno uspeha u gradu i hvala vam još jednom što ste odlučili da se ovogodišnja skrenena skupština Evropske konferencije crkava, konferencija Evropskih crkava održi u Novom Sadu. I dobrodošli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We know that bridges were bumped, and we are so happy that your city became a real builder of bridges. And we wish every prosperity to your city and most especially to the population of the city. Thank you so much for your hospitality, for being with us tonight, and hope that one day we will see each other again. Now we'll give the floor to our moderator so that she can continue with the issue that we started with earlier this afternoon.
Thank you, Your Eminence. I just also want to add that some of us are obliged to revisit Novi Sad because we have planted trees here. Thank you. We shall move on to finish what we should have finished last session. And that is, we have one more report to receive, and that is the one from the Strategy and Policy Committee report, who have, I think, now delivered a draft. And after that, we shall have a short comment from the Public Issues Committee. So may I ask the chairperson of the Strategy and Policy Committee to give us the report. Thank you.
As I was saying earlier, I'm not going to repeat the first part of the report which I read and which you've been able to see, but the introduction was meant simply to set the context and introduce the paper. So I'll pick it up from Journey Continues. Thank you. The process of agreeing a new constitution has compelled CEC to adopt a lighter and more sustainable structure. In order for such a light structure to work, not only cohesively but also effectively, it is vital that the diversity of life in our member churches and organisations of partnership should be recognised, celebrated and promoted. This means making space for a wider range of voices, strengthening CEC's commitment to engage a younger, more diverse constituency. CEC should aim to work closely with other agencies involved in facing common challenges and opportunities in Europe, seeking to inspire a new generation to face change confidently and joyfully. This involves learning from the experience of minority Christian communities and taking seriously the concerns of our young people. CEC needs to engage younger people in all its work, possibly making space at the cost of older generations of ecumenists, in order that a new course can be set that captures the imagination and commitment of a new generation. CEC should challenge the security-driven concerns of society arising from the 20th century experience of war and promote a society of solidarity and mutual justice. That is simply to recognise the fact that for a younger generation they have no experience, most of them, of war, in the way that the ecumenical movement derived its vision from emerging from a century and a half century of war. The churches of Europe need CEC in order to maximise Christian witness and prophetic challenge in a complex and rapidly changing world. Recognising that churches exist for the sake of God's kingdom, CEC should keep its remit as simple and as clear as possible. Its priorities must be achievable and affordable with the resources available. CEC should accordingly add value to what churches do on a local level and not try to do what others can do better, and its offices should be directed accordingly. To this end, we commend a policy direction around the three themes of witness discussed at Novi Sad. First, policy. The Strategy and Policy Committee recommend three thematic policy areas emerging from repentant discipleship and consequent witness to the healing Christ. Repentance, that is metanoia, a changed mindset, a changed mind, must begin with Christians themselves, allowing their minds to be renewed and transformed. So firstly, hospitality. Offering Christ's welcome to all, especially those feeling ignored, discriminated against or oppressed by society, amongst us, in our churches, in our countries, and in our continent. Hospitality, that is loving one's neighbour as oneself, is commanded by Christ, not suggested. Secondly, justice, seeking to embody and commend justice shaped by grace and mercy. This directs our attention towards environmental, economic, social and ethical relational concerns, and must involve expressed concerns, particularly by younger people at Novi Sad, for human rights and freedom of religion and belief. Christian unity is around the cross, not simply in a common set of values. Thirdly, hope. Christians are drawn by hope, not driven by fear. Theological and other dialogues can help churches articulate and live out, whatever our circumstances and challenges, a form of bridge building between people that offers the world a different and a joyful model of relating, what we could describe as loving, living and learning. And so we move from policy to strategy. The governing board needs to develop a strategy in order to fulfill CEC's vision and set targets accordingly. The Strategy and Policy Committee highlight the following strategic points for CEC for the next stage. And I remind you that we've tried to be disciplined and keep it simple. Firstly, CEC must add value to the witness of the member churches. Internally, CEC becomes more relevant to member churches, improving and expanding its modes of communication. Externally, to Europe, the European institutions and the wider world, taking seriously changes in the world's order, some of which we don't know will happen. Secondly, CEC must change its mode of operation. Internally, consider developing more regional work in an appropriate balance with central functions, whilst paying attention to costs of flexibility and travel for participants. CEC should act as a facilitator, enabling collaboration and sharing of information and resources. This includes finding different ways of communication, consultation and working mechanisms, because the media landscape is evolving rapidly and must involve evaluating progress. Externally, to optimise relations and cooperation with organisations in partnership and other agencies, both religious and non-religious, engaged in similar work. Strengthen engagement with other Christian, interfaith and secular bodies, for example, Action for Churches Together Europe, Conference of Protestant Churches in Europe, and the others that are listed there. Thirdly, CEC must remain sustainable. Internally, this means effective management requires a constant review of finance, personnel and priorities in seeking to fulfil its remit. Member churches must support CEC in order that CEC can support them and achieve what the member churches ask CEC to do. If we want it, we must resource and pay for it. This must be consistently reviewed and evaluated in the light of the priorities established in this document. And then externally, consider the ecological impact of CEC's work, continuing to enhance the sustainability of the planet and its resources. And so derived from the policy and strategy, some simple recommendations. Hospitality, justice and hope need to be both the dynamic for and the lens through which CEC should see all of its work. And so hospitality. Given the challenges of increasing national populism in Europe, CEC should maintain and further develop its work at the Church's Commission for Migrants in Europe. Secondly, CEC should encourage networking, facilitating and sharing resources and experiences between member churches in relation to interfaith dialogue and cooperation, together with WCC. In relation to justice, CEC should strengthen the integration and engagement of young people at every level of its work and decision-making, recognising that this might mean a shift in its culture and practice. Secondly, CEC should continue to identify where capacity might be added to the priority of human rights, peace building and reconciliation in Europe, including between churches, facilitating the training and equipping of young people, particularly for this task. And thirdly, hope. CEC should seek both to challenge and inspire member churches for local and national engagement with politics, economics and cultures, utilising tools such as receptive ecumenism and theological dialogue, all rooted in an incarnational commitment to God's world and people made in the Imago Dei. It's the beginning of all our ethics. These recommendations encourage CEC to root its priorities in a theological anthropology that asks us what would make a good society. Now you'll understand that's intended to be clear and concise. So to open up and not to simply provide a shopping list of issues with which we want the governing board to deal with. We saw our task as being like the board of a company, setting the policy direction, and then it's for the board to, as the management, to work out how that is to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop Banks. I would now like to suggest to the Assembly that you save as much as you can on what you can write to the committee from the session, but if you have questions for clarification now, the floor is open. So I see microphone 3.
Thank you, moderator. This is Michael Itterveen from the Netherlands, representing the Conference of European Clergy. I want to speak German. Da wird eine Organisation genannt, die Organisaties in Paris. Und ich denke, aufgrund dessen, was wir so als Konferenz Europäische Pfarrer miteinander gemein haben, dass auch sinnvoll wäre, die Konferenz Europäische Pfarrvereine hinzuzufügen. Ja.
Thank you very much. Microphone 2, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank deeply Bishop of the Church of England for this remarkable work that he has done, and to the whole committee of the strategy and policy for the next 5 years. I just want to say a few remarks about the last page, which is recommendations. I think it is very important to repeat here in this very esteemed assembly that, as we said at the beginning, CEC belongs to member churches. And we have to govern CEC. We have to make all the policies for CEC, and that's why churches need to be more involved to this process for the next 5 years. So since we start about a new process of engaging the churches and member churches to the governing process of CEC, we need more involvement of member churches, especially in an issue which we have heard so many things in this place, and personally I'm grateful for everyone. And I want to start by the message from His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew that we heard those days about the future of Europe, and relating the future of Europe about solidarity in Europe. And solidarity in Europe doesn't mean only love for our neighbor, but means in these days what we will do about the issue of the refugee crisis. I don't see that the policy and the strategy is very correct and concrete on that, because not only in my context in Greece and in Italy, but in the whole Europe, what we will face in the next 5 years concerning the increasing of the refugees and the migrants in Europe, no one can tell us what will be the future of Europe. And you see that we spoke about populism, we spoke about the rise of the extreme right parties in Europe. We see all those challenges, that they are challenging not justice, but peace, which peace is one of the most important achievements of the European Union. In order to maintain peace, now we have to act in solidarity as churches and as a voice for the European institutions about the next policies for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We go to microphone 4, please.
Claire Houston from the United Reformed Church.
Can you stand?
Could you come closer to the microphone?
Reference has been made to cooperation between the CEC and various church bodies, but I would like to underline the fact that from 2002 in Hania, when the first theological consultation took place between CEC and the CPCE Geke, there have been 1 or 2 other similar theological consultations. The report states this: ecumenism lives by the will for shared theological work, by openness to the questions of the other, and a spirit of being brothers and sisters in a faith which transcends boundaries. It is in this spirit that I would like to suggest that the possibility of further joint theological work be explored between CEC and the CPCE. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Tony Peck, the European Baptist Federation. Thank you for an excellent report, both in the content and also in the way it's written. I think it's a great report. It was good to see early on in it that the young people had brought forward specifically the issue of religious freedom. And I want to say for my own community that the work that CEC does on religious freedom is outstanding and hugely respected. I would just like to see religious freedom mentioned specifically in the last section, where you're listing human rights and other aspects that should be tackled in the years to come. I just think that religious freedom is such an important part of the work of CEC, it deserves a mention by name in that last section. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Microphone 1, please.
Gijs of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. And first of all, I want to thank all committees for including a lot of our recommendations that we've done as youth. Specifically for this committee, we were very happy to see that receptive ecumenism and interfaith dialogue were mentioned, and we hope that CEC is going to take that really serious. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Microphone 3, please.
Well, this is Yves Spekman from the Mennonite Church in the Netherlands. This is not exactly a round of clarifications, questions, I guess. My only question would be that you also, because I'm highly appreciative of this report and also the concern to keep it efficient, so did you also think about the cooperation, because there's a point of point 2 for the externally partnerships, communication with external partnerships. Did you also think about partnerships with the academic world? Because, for instance, in my university where I work, there is the Amsterdam Center for Peace and Religion Studies, which could also be very helpful and will not be very expensive to cooperate with, and would be very much into cooperating in the peace and hospitality and environmental study.
Thank you very much. Microphone 2.
I am Bishop Mikael from Church of Sweden, and I would like to underline and emphasize the sentence talking about the experience of Christian minorities in Europe. And as I can see the future, we are all minorities, and we are from now minorities in a global sense, and in the eyes of God, of course, but also in Europe probably, and probably also in our nations. And the learning from minorities and the cooperation in between, and how the minorities, the Christian minorities, with a minority identity are on the front in the coming Europe, because we with a majority identity, we have to learn from the minority churches. And that's one reason why I'm here, and why it's important for an old state church like Church of Sweden to be present in this community.
Thank you. And then I see no other voices, so I hand the word to you.
Thank you very much for those observations. On the first one about the European pastors, we've been careful not to simply provide lists of all the agencies or different groups that could be included. So we've tried to keep a discipline with that. Secondly, on engaging member churches more, absolutely, and I think we tried to cover that but fairly concisely, particularly under hospitality, point 2, if I can find it, where we talk about CEC, under recommendations, CEC should encourage networking, facilitating and sharing resources and experiences between member churches in relation to interfaith dialogue and cooperation. Of course, it goes beyond that, but I think we can sharpen that up. That's a helpful comment. And on solidarity and refugees, I think that's intended to be covered in the preceding point. On joint theological work with CPCE, yes, but I think that is included under strategy point 2, where we mention CPCE, strengthen engagement with other Christian, interfaith and secular bodies. It's for the governing board to work out what specifically that might look like. That could be theological encounter, it could be other things as well, but the point is heard. Freedom of religion and belief, to go into the final section, we'll have a look at that when we look at final drafting. Partnerships with the academic world, absolutely. But I think we've made the assumption that if you're going to engage in theological discussion, theological conferences and things like that, you'd be stupid not to involve academia. But that again is something that the governing board ought to look at, even if we don't make a specific reference in here, but we'll look at that. Finally, Christian minorities. I've got to be honest, I wouldn't have thought of this had not one of the members of the committee, who comes from Turkey, spoken about it. And it emphasises the fact, which is the gift of a conference like this, that it's only when you look through the eyes of someone else coming from a very different experience that you can look at yourself and see what assumptions you make about God, the world, and us. And that has to be part of the metanoia, part of the repentance, the gradual changing of the mind, the way we see and the way we understand. So we take that point seriously. I do think it's covered under our policy in relation to repentance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I now invite the Chairperson of the Public Issues Committee.
Thank you, Moderator. The Moderator of the Steering Committee and the General Secretary and me, we stood together and we have this proposal and decided how to proceed in this way. The proposal is to, instead of speaking of we commit ourselves as then coming bullet points, that we name them as key points. And at the end of the paper, we say the Assembly commits the Conference of European Churches to engage and explore how these commitments can be implemented in the life and witness of the churches. So we make more sure that it is a process in which we go exploring and working on these themes during the next years. We thought that we might propose it in this way and do not need now having any voting on it, but just go on to include whatever was said in the plenary during the discussion and then come tomorrow with these changes. So.
Thank you very much for trying to accommodate some of the feedback from the floor already. We wish all the committees good luck with the work till tomorrow. Thank you very much for the work you've done so far. And now to the next business. I hand over the word to Your Eminence.
Thank you. This is a plenary business meeting, and in this meeting we are going to elect a new presidency and a governing board of the Conference of European Churches. And this election is a historical one because it's for the first time that it's not the governing board that is going to appoint the president and the two vice presidents, but it is you, the members and delegates of the churches and members of this General Assembly. But we first have a proposal from our youth. They thought that they don't know really the candidates for the office of president, and they asked us to give them the possibility to put some questions to them. So I would like to ask the two candidates to come on stage, and also some of the youth representatives that are going to put the questions. That will be something interactive. So we will start with microphone 3. He is a representative of our youth, and he is going to ask a first question.
Thank you, Moderator. Actually, I am kind of old youth, but I have been in connection with the youth group here. Thank you. To vote for a president of CEC is a great responsibility. I feel myself and I have heard that many others feel the same, that I need to hear a bit more from the candidates to get to know them a bit better. 3 youth advisors will therefore bring forth 3 questions to both of the candidates. I want to thank the moderator for allowing this. And if I may, then I want to call them by their names and ask the moderator to call them to the microphones. I see they are already there. The youth advisors are Gisbert Stingberg from the Protestant Kerk in Netherlands, Lena Eisenbretter, Baptist Church Münster, Jan Saxe, Evangelical Lutheran Church Hanover. I hope I pronounced your names right. Thank you again, moderator.
Thank you. So we will start with the first one coming from the Netherlands.
Gijsbert Steenbeek from the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. So one of the questions that we were wondering about the candidates is what are your visions for the future of CEC? For example, where would you like to see CEC being already next year?
Can you start with answering?
Of course, CEC will be moving quickly if I become the president. So we are in another stage next year, so that's a very good question. Now, I would really like to see some of the things that is mentioned now in our policy paper as it is drafted already, that we increase the networking among member churches and that CEC becomes the facilitator of more increased cooperation for the member churches, so that CEC will not be as much a program organization as it will be a facilitator for networking and cooperation between the member churches. This is a new working style that has to be implemented, and it is a necessity because the staff is as small as it is. So we can't expect CEC to be experts, but needs to facilitate a network. And if we need, at the same time, to make an impression on Europe, there is a demand in Europe for clear statements on values, Christian values. We have to work on that together with the member churches. If we want to make a clear impression, we need a more clear communication strategy. So we have to put emphasis on that. So I would like to see a CEC that is visible, that people from time to time in the secular world talk about. Oh, did that happen in CEC? That is interesting. And that it is based on our common witness to Christ, carrying precisely Christ as the suffering, that we do it in solidarity with those of us in Europe that have the most difficulties. So a political, visible, strengthening CEC, but on the basis of networking. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Krieger.
May I speak French?
Of course.
Merci pour cette question. Il est vrai qu'en relisant la Constitution et en reprenant aussi le rapport du groupe sur Strategy and Policy, une impressionnante vision et de grandes attentes sont exprimées vis-à-vis de la CEC. La première et plus urgente chose, c'est de mettre au travail le Governing Board pour traduire ça dans une stratégie concrète afin de pouvoir mettre en œuvre ce projet, cette vision qui émane en fait de cette Assemblée Générale et que nous voulons et devons tous porter ensemble. Je peux rejoindre en fait Anders qui a parlé avant moi en disant que le travail émane en fait de notre réunion de notre assemblée d'aujourd'hui et qu'il s'agit en fait de se donner tous les moyens pour que les églises membres et toutes les organisations en partenariat puissent être visibles et rendre le témoignage à l'Évangile que Dieu nous appelle à rendre. Merci.
So we go on with the second question. It's Lena, I think, who is going to ask this question.
Lena Eisenblätter, Baptist Church in Germany. As young people, we often experience being asked the same questions when we are applying for a job. Therefore, we would like to ask you today what competences you have gained and what challenges you face in your current job. What are your challenges and competences in the field of, firstly, cooperation with others, secondly, your leadership capacity, and thirdly, pursuing a vision in your current church or institute?
Donc premièrement, la question de la compétence. Je suis pasteur et théologien. J'ai servi pendant 17 ans dans une paroisse à Strasbourg, qui est une paroisse qui s'est fortement développée par un rayonnement. Conscient en fait que l'enjeu des églises aujourd'hui, c'est de pouvoir s'adresser bien au-delà du cercle de leurs membres. J'ai enseigné à la faculté de théologie protestante de Strasbourg dans le cadre du, aujourd'hui il y a un Master 2 sur justement l'exercice de la corrélation, c'est-à-dire d'essayer d'avoir un discours théologique sur les enjeux de société et de nous laisser interroger sur, en tant que théologien par les questions de société. Ensuite, je suis actuellement depuis 10 ans président non seulement de l'Église depuis 6 ans, mais aussi d'une œuvre d'action sociale qui comporte 70 employés et qui travaille pour accueillir, accompagner des femmes en difficulté pour leur insertion. Donc j'ai fait, je pense, preuve, puisque cette association comporte aujourd'hui 70 personnes, d'une capacité de leadership pour emmener une équipe et accomplir un service social au nom de l'Évangile. Alors je ne sais pas s'il y avait un troisième aspect à la question. Alors j'ai une fragilité, c'est que je ne parle pas encore suffisamment bien l'anglais. Et c'est vous qui déciderez aujourd'hui si en juillet je vais faire un cours intensif d'anglais à Cambridge pour être mieux à même de conduire le governing board dans une réelle coopération.
So, Reverend Claviat, if you can also respond to that question, please.
Thank you for the assistant, Christians. I would start in the other end then, where with the weaknesses and the challenges. I have one weakness, my French is not so good. I would more identify a challenge in my job. I'm the Dean of the Cathedral in Copenhagen and working together with 35 pastors in my deanery in the central part of Copenhagen. And one of the main challenges is to reach out for the young adults that become parents because they are not very sure of whether they should baptize their child or not, and that is a huge opportunity to come into a dialogue of what Christianity means and how important it is to bring up your children in a Christian faith. And we cannot sit in the churches and wait for young adults coming to us as we did in the past, in my church at least, and sitting behind our desks and study. We have to reach out. And that's quite a big challenge to teach my pastors and learning them to be willing to move away from their safe desks into the streets and the houses and apartments of the congregations. That's really a challenge. I'm working hard on that in order to have this dialogue with young adults on Christianity. My strengths about leadership and cooperation, I would say that I am capable of bringing synergy and consensus among very different people when we have to achieve goals that we have set up for us, to create results out of decisions. And I have visions, and I've been an innovator as a pastor. I've created in the city center of Copenhagen the night church, which means that the cathedral is open until midnight for young adults with their music and teaching them slowly liturgy, but not imposing it too tough on them, because then they will run out again and go on the discotheques instead. And in that way to include young people. And then on the diaconical side in Copenhagen, we have an increasing number of homeless people. There we have initiated a very recommended work among homeless with food and shelter and advice and caring and supporting them vis-a-vis the municipality, so that hopefully they will take over. It shouldn't be the church, but we have to do it as long as the municipality doesn't do it. So I think that is enough. Thank you very much.
And then we go on with the third question and the last one.
Jan Hendrik Sachse from the Protestant Church of Germany. Dean Galvard, Reverend Krieger, the world and the societies around us are changing, especially our way of communication. When I see and I look around in this room, nearly every person owns and uses a laptop or a smartphone or a tablet, or even all three of them at the same time. This kind of digitalization influences our way of communication extremely. So my question is, how should CEC address this issue of digitalization of our communication and the use of social media to reach out to our members in our churches in the next 5 years, especially to the young generation, so-called digital natives? Thank you.
Yes, I think Reverend Anders Sandegaard.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, because that is one of my priorities. As I have already mentioned, I would really love to see CEC creating a European youth network on the digital media, teaching old leaders like Christian and myself how to be better in utilizing them, and do it in cooperation with the member churches' information desks, so that we could have a much closer cooperation on information. And that is not so costly, because you can sit, as you explained, with your computers anywhere to do it. So for me that is a high priority, and I think it could be extremely useful, because you are much better than most of us to do that.
Reverend Krieger.
On dit qu'une de mes qualités, c'est de savoir écouter et rassembler des gens compétents autour de moi. Et les gens compétents en matière de communication, c'est vous. Donc il faudra que le Governing Board s'adresse aux jeunes d'une manière ou d'une autre pour les mobiliser autour de cette tâche, parce que vous êtes bien plus pertinent et plus efficace en matière de communication que nous ne pourrons jamais l'être. Là, le rôle de l'enseignant et de l'enseigné est inversé, et je serai donc, avec le Governing Board, à votre écoute pour aller à la rencontre de tous ceux qui cherchent du sens dans leur existence et s'adressent à eux au nom de Jésus-Christ.
Thank you. I think you have convinced our youth that now we are going to proceed to the elections, and it's not our youth only that is going to decide. So we are going on with our business meeting, and I will hand over to His Eminence Archbishop Joris, and I think we have to start with stating if we have a quorum or not.
Okay. First of all, checking if we have a quorum. Is there a point of order? Okay. Microphone 4, please.
Such honorable Reformed churches in Switzerland, it's a question of procedure. The question of procedure is foreseen to have a small floor opening about the presentation for the presidency. I mean, about the candidates for the overall presentation for all the presidents, three positions for the presidency.
Yeah. First of all, after we have checked the quorum, I will invite the chair of the nominations committee to present the report of the nominations committee, and then we go further. Checking the quorum. Secretary General. It means that each delegation from each church must show the green card, and then they are counted. Each delegation, one green card, please. One delegate from a delegation. Each delegation, one green card. Okay, they are counted. In the meantime, we can take the point of order, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Akifa, Evangelical Church in Germany. I speak in German. Ich will nur sicher sein, was das Prozedere angeht. Wir kennen es so, oder ich kenne es auch so, dass bei solchen Wahlen natürlich geheim abgestimmt wird. Es wäre gut, wenn Sie uns das Prozedere erklären, ansonsten würde ich einen solchen Antrag stellen.
Wir werden das machen. Ich werde erst den Vorsitzenden des Nominations Committee das Wort verleihen, und dann werden wir das machen. We have 76 churches present. It means that the quorum is reached. Secretary General? Okay, the quorum is reached. Thank you very much. Now I call upon the chair of the nominations committee and invite her to present the report through the assembly.
Thank you. The disciples was sent out 2 and 2, and I brought my vice chair as well. So first of all, last evening we finally could publish the proposals together with our report. And during the day, as some of you may have noticed, we have made an amendment, and I will read the notes to that first and then read the full report. An unfortunate misunderstanding led to a mistake regarding a family name or a surname of one nominee, Mrs. Susanna Repasi. In the amended version that we have published, it is corrected and it's marked for you to easily see it. It was also brought to the Nominations Committee's attention that one nominee had already served 2 terms, although not consecutively, and thus is not eligible for election. And the Nominations Committee would instead like to propose another person from that same church. You will also see this in the amended proposition marked so that it's easy to spot. And we apologize for the inconvenience brought about this. The Nominations Committee is tasked with proposing the membership of the Governing Board and the proxy list, which will become the electoral reserve of 17 members, 1 proxy per member, except for the President and the Vice Presidents. The committee would like to remind the Assembly that the Governing Board should, as far as possible, reflect the constituency of the CEC member churches. In preparing the schedule of nominations for consideration by the General Assembly, the committee is required to consider a number of balances across both the Governing Board and proxies, some of which have specific minimum percentages goal. The Assembly Nominations Panel suggested a regional balance profile to the committee and determined the minimum membership targets set out below. A youth membership with a target of at least 20%, a gender balance target minimum 40%, confessional family in the Constitution a minimum of 25% Orthodox, and also by region and if you are lay or ordained. The committee is limited by the pool of nominees, nominated candidates. However, it has managed to make a proposal which meets all the balances targets in the Governing Board. It was not possible to fully meet the gender balance also with the proxies. Mindful of the input from the Youth Assembly and the affirmation of that input by the Assembly, the Nominations Committee has prioritized the youth membership target, which has been met. The Assembly Nominations Panel suggested a regional balance to the committee. However, in order to meet the gender and the age balance from the nomination pool and to secure cross-regional representation of the Orthodox churches, the committee has made minor amendments to regional balances suggested. The committee was mindful in its considerations of the need to ensure minority churches were represented amongst both the governing body and proxies, and succeeding in ensuring representation in both. The membership proposal includes both candidates for the presidency, as both have skills and experience which would benefit the governing board. As the outcome of the election process is unknown at this stage, both appear under precedent, and the first line of the membership list preserves a place for the not elected candidate. Both are ordained men, and both regions have been taken into account when considering overall regional balances. The committee considered the need to provide continuity alongside new members, and among the suggested membership, a total of 7 former members are suggested for the governing board, a total membership of 20, and 2 for the proxies. Some notes regarding the election of the president. This is the first time that the president will be chosen by the General Assembly. The committee considered the experience and qualifications of both candidates at length. It concluded that both had much to offer to CAC through either the office of president or through membership of the governing board. The committee also considered whether to make a specific proposal, naming one of the candidates only in the knowledge that a challenge might be put to that name, or to allow the General Assembly to make that choice through an election. In offering the two candidates for election, the committee would draw the following to the attention of the Assembly. Both are from Protestant churches which had not held the presidential office in the past. The Reformed confessional line within the Protestant family does in itself encompass a number of different denominational strands. And that one candidate is from a majority church and the other from a minority church. In a number of traditions, votes of this nature would always take place by secret ballot, and delegate members of the committee have exercised the right to request such a ballot for this election.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there questions or clarifications or remarks to make? I want to open the floor for that now. No? Yes, one. Microphone 3, please.
My name is Julian Zijlstra from the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. I speak English. I have a question about the representation of certain groups of countries, regions. There are 3 proposed members for the board from the United Kingdom, if I'm right, and none of the Netherlands. The last 5 years there was also not a candidate from the Netherlands. I would like to ask a question about this. Isn't it fair or better distributed when someone from the Netherlands, a young person, might be inside the board? And would it not be a better balance if that would, at this moment, be something to consider as a spot would take place? It's nothing personal. It's just about the distribution of the members of the board from the several regions. So I would like to propose a swap that Renate Jabenga, who was active Saturday here as a steward and as a youth delegate, not a delegate of course, would swap with Emma Johnson. Would that be a possibility still to consider? I have a motion here, signed by 10 delegates, and I could bring it in if you like. Yeah?
You have the right. You have the right to move a motion. So, okay, bring it to the table. No, not yet. Okay, other questions for clarification or please?
Thank you,
Your Eminence. Go on.
Thank you, Your Eminence. I would have started thinking now about names. It's a discussion, can we make any remarks about names now? Is it now the time?
You have the right to move motions, and so when you have to propose other names.
Yes, because we see you have the list, but it is now the time or it will be later?
I think we will be. Perhaps you can answer this question.
I think it would be good if you had questions on our report, what I just have read, and then the procedure for the election will come. First, my understanding was first for the 2 candidates for presidents, then for the list with the vice presidents, and then for the entire list. So the motion for board members would be at a slightly a later stage.
That's right, but if you have a motion, so you can bring it to the table, and then we will handle it.
Thank you, members. I have a motion about the members of the governing board. As you know, in the Orthodox tradition, in the Orthodox Church, we cannot act by ourselves. We are here delegating our churches, and I am delegating with the other esteemed persons of my delegation, the Church of Greece. So when we have been asked by CEC in the Presidium and the governing board about new names for the new governing board, the Synod of the Church of Greece, which is the assembly of the metropolitans in Greece, we have sent a synodical letter to the governing board saying that we are proposing for member at the governing board Archimandrite Ignatios Sotiriadis, and as his proxy, a deacon, which is youth, which is a young person, Father Iacovos Andriopoulos. Now I've seen the list, exactly the opposite. Father Iacovos, he is in the governing board, and Father Ignatios, he is in the proxies, one of the proxies, which is totally the opposite. And as you can understand, if I go back to my church, what I will say to the Holy Synod, since you have a different proposal from our Synod, you have asked for us to propose a person, and we did that according to your willingness, and that what we see here is totally different. So I want to have a clarification on that, and why you did that.
Okay.
Because it's something that we cannot accept.
I presume that the chair of the nominations committee can give you the clarification to also follow.
We are very happy that so many nominations came in, and we considered all of them, and our task was to meet also the balance with youth, and with gender, and with region, and with the denominational family. And that is why some people who was perhaps not the first on the list of one particular church's nomination was switched for another lower on the list, so to speak. And that goes for many.
That's a clarification. So you accepted a nomination and not an appointment. That's actually the case.
Yes, you're right, absolutely right, because we nominate and you appoint. So there's no doubt of that. But
yes, I need
another explanation, because as I said to you, the system that we are working in the Church of Greece, in the order of the churches, we cannot do things by ourselves. I am the head of my delegation, nothing more than that. If I go back, what I will say to my synod? If I do that in a time of, a little bit earlier, that there is a wish for younger participation, of course we can consider. That's why, since you have recommended in our member churches to have youth and women in our delegations, that's why we have it, and we have it. So this is my.
I understand your difficulty. Perhaps for a second time you can comment on it.
Again, it is the youth quota in this case.
Okay, that's the explanation of the nominations committee. According to the rules, I think so. As far as I understand the rules, so I can check it with the legal advisors.
What the legal advisors have to say about this? Is it possible, according to the rules of the Assembly, that the nomination committee makes the change in one of the member churches' proposal?
The legal advisors say yes on your question.
Then why do you haven't provided that since the beginning?
Please.
The answer is a bit more complicated than yes or no.
every candidate proposed needs to have the support of their member church. That given the nominations committee can change as much as it wants. And later the assembly can change names without asking for the consent of the member church. That's the rules.
It's clear to you? Okay, thank you. And then there is a motion from the nominations committee explaining to us the procedure we will follow now for the elections. Please, can we have it on the screen? Yeah, thank you.
So
Please go ahead.
the voting, the undersigned do on behalf of the nominations committee that this General Assembly elects the President and 2 Vice Presidents by 1. Adopting the nominations list for the 2 Vice Presidents, 2. Taking a vote on who of the 2 candidates for President shall be added to that nominations list for the President and the 2 Vice Presidents, 3. Adopting the nominations list for the President and 2 Vice Presidents as amended and finalized under the above procedure.
That is clear to everyone. The justification is written down. It's it's as it is foreseen in the Constitution. Actually, it's clear to everybody. Then we will vote on this motion. There is, please, microphone 4.
Moderator, Stadtrat from Church of Switzerland. I would like to make a comment on the list for the 3 members of the Presidium, the President and the Vice Presidents, according to the proposal of the Nominations Committee.
But you will have you will have that opportunity immediately. It's only now the motion on the order actually. So if the motion is carried, so the first point will be the Vice Presidents. Is that clear to you? Okay. Then we will vote on this motion. It's clear to everybody. Who is in favor of this motion? So show your green cards. This is the motion that is on the screen. It's about the procedure. It's about the order we will follow. It's okay. Who is against red cards? I don't see any red cards. Abstentions, white cards. 1 abstention. The motion is carried. Then we will move. Thank you very much. We will move to the adopting of the nomination list for the 2 Vice Presidents. Are there comments to make to that list? So we will vote on those 2 Vice Presidents on the list. Who is in favor of that list of the 2 names who are on the list of the Vice Presidents? Who is in favor? Green cards, please. Okay, who is against the red forms? Red cards. Against. No red cards. Abstentions, please. White cards. Two abstentions. That's it. Yeah. Thank you very much. So we are working on our list. There are already 2 names on our list, 2 names for the vice presidents. Now we move to the name of the president, actually. And we have 2 candidates for the president. And there is, okay, our Swiss brother wants to speak about this. Please, microphone 4.
Thank you very much, moderator. Sorry for the disturbances. Yes, I would make a comment on this and ask the Assembly to consider following comment. As it was mentioned through the chairwoman of the nominations committee, this whole exercise is a pretty touchy and difficult exercise of checks and balances according to several criteria. And it seems that we will still have to discuss the way these balances have been done or not, or well done or not. I would just like to remind the Assembly that the question of the regional balances is also usually a very important criteria for the members of the Presidium, meaning the President and the 2 Vice Presidents. We could also actually add the General Secretary who works with the 3 Presidents. And I would just make the remark that according to us, unfortunately, the regional balances for the whole Presidium is in one case a little bit unbalanced, if I may say so, since we would have 3 people from the Nordic region of Europe and only 1 from another region, which is actually also pretty northwards. So there is one solution which allows a little bit more balance among the various regions of the camp. Thank you.
Thank you. All the other, yeah. Microphone 2.
Yes, Bishop Sommer from Church of Norway. I think if that argument is going to have an importance for how people vote, we have to cancel the vote on vice presidents and start with the presidents. Because we cannot have the election of the vice president decide who should be vice president, if we, in terms of the regional balances. Secondly, I think that it is important that we think much more on church. What kind of church are the people representing the regional differences? And I must say that if you see the Europe in the next 5 years, 6 years, who have the most important and most difficult and most challenging situation? And I would say that is those churches, those of us who have traditionally been identified as nation building and national churches. We are really the churches who are carrying the challenges in terms of the change in Europe. Now, the minority churches have great gifts, great experiences, and they are well represented in the governing board. But as it is now, the large, not because of majority, but because of their names indicating that they are identifying the nations, and they have a huge following among ordinary people all over Europe. So I would therefore ask the General Assembly to vote for Anders Dean, because he will bring into the Presidium the main trust of the large churches and their transforming power in Europe now. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Other remarks to make? Microphone 4.
Jan Lynch of Catholic Church in Republic. I would like to say that I don't consider the issue raised about 3 people being from the north as a very fair, because first it takes into account also the General Secretary, who doesn't really serve in his originally Nordic church because he's based in the headquarters of CEC. So I think that's the first point that's discutable, and the second one, it regards the Metropolitan Cleopas as being from the north, which he is, but he's representing the Ecumenical Patriarchate, and as we also see on the list, he's listed as international, not as Nordic, because of this.
Thank you, but we are now on the names of the president. Please, microphone 3.
Yeah, point of procedure, Lea Schwenke, Church of EKD, Protestant Church of Germany. I'm just wondering, because where I come from, it's usually that we have a debate on persons, these persons leave the room. So I was just wondering whether that's the case here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does the legal advisors advise me? That both candidates will leave the room? Yeah, it's good procedure of practice, actually. So may I ask now both candidates to leave the room? Thank you for your willingness. The two candidates for the president. Okay, microphone 3.
I beg your pardon, I guess I will make it more difficult, but you know, in proper order also to leave.
Louder.
I beg your pardon, I guess I make the whole thing now a bit more difficult, but in order to have a proper procedure, we should leave this important issue of cake to the delegates of the Assembly and not to the public. So I have this motion to ask everybody who is not a delegate to leave the room.
So, for a closed session, what does the legal advisor say about that? Is that
I feel like
yeah.
about 20 years
That I want to bring first of all this motion into vote. The motion is that we will have a closed session on the name of the president, actually. Who is in favor of this motion? Show your green cards.
This one, right?
Yes, that is. Thank you very much.
Who is against? Show your red box.
The first time.
Thank you. Abstentions, please. Thank you very much. The result will be immediately there.
Ready to go.
The result of the vote is the following: 56 yes, 44 no, 21 abstentions, total votes cast 121. So it's a closed session. So may I request of the guests and advisors to leave the room, and also